Chapter 4 Mary Kay Cosmetics, The Early Years. It became traditional for our entire family to gather at my house on Thanksgiving Day. A few years ago, I was preparing for the holiday crowd. There was going to be 53 of us. When I realized that the 2 huge turkeys I had bought wouldn't fit in my oven at the same time, this was going to be a real problem. For a while, I could have cooked 1 turkey on the day before Thanksgiving. I thought that this might lose some of that good, fresh baked flavor. And while I had a microwave, I liked turkey cooked long and slow. Then I remembered something stored in my garage, my trusty old turkey roaster. I dusted off and tested it, and sure enough, it still worked. Good old faithful. I thought, you never let me down. Suddenly, my mind was flooded with many good memories. I had used that turkey roaster back in 1964 when I cooked for our company's first anniversary seminar. As I cleaned it up, I felt like pinching myself to see if I was dreaming. It seemed like a lifetime ago, but it was just a couple of decades. We've come a long way, baby, I told that old roaster. The first headquarters for Mary Kay Cosmetics was a 500 square foot storefront in Exchange Park, a large bank and office building complex in Dallas. As I have said, we opened the doors on Friday, September 13th, 1963, exactly 1 month to the day after my husband died. I had invested what I thought was a fortune, $5,000, in formulas, jars, and used office equipment that was starting out on what was to become quite an adventure. Richard and I had great hopes for our location. The Exchange Bank occupied a major portion of the building's first floor, and a number of national companies occupied most of the remaining floors. There were also several small businesses, including a coffee shop, a drugstore, and a restaurant. Our offices were on a mall which catered to 5,000 women who worked throughout the building complex. We were certain that we would get lots of sales from that captive market. They'd go right past us each morning on the way to work, and they'd go right past us again every evening. For a long time after our opening, we were absolutely correct. They went right past. In the morning, they were rushing to get to work on time, and in the evening, they were anxious to get home. Our only advantage was that they did get coffee breaks twice a day. Before long, we learned to give the fastest facials you ever seen. We even learned how to dry the mask quickly with an electric fan. But as I started, we were still full of hope. And truthfully, we had anticipated that it would be difficult getting women to stop in to learn about an unknown line of cosmetics. Women will often say, I've been using brand X for years and I'm perfectly satisfied. We needed something that attracted customers, and I thought of offering custom wigs. In 1963, wigs are a very hot item. So I went to Florida for a training course, and we bought an inventory of high-quality human hair wigs. We were ready for business. If we didn't succeed, I knew I'd be back working for someone for the rest of my life. It was Richard's idea to have a glamorous grand opening. We hired a very famous wig stylist, Renee Perry, to style all the wigs purchased that day, and we hired a darling little model to serve champagne to the customers. I will admit that I was never comfortable with champagne in a model, but I accepted the judgment that I was being old-fashioned and went along with it. And sure enough, who do you think the model attracted? The men in the building, not the women. Nevertheless, we sold about a dozen wigs to those women who did come in, and Renee styled them all very elegantly. Naturally, the women who were blonde bought brunette wigs, and the brunettes all wanted blonde wigs. We were very excited about those first day sales until Monday morning. That's when we learned that it's a terrible mistake to buy a wig that's noticeably different from your own hair. A wig should supplement a woman's wardrobe and help her look good when she doesn't have time to style her hair. But we didn't realize how important it was to stress this fact to our customers, and so we sold them anything they wanted. Of course, as soon as they went home, family and friends cried something like, "Goldilocks! What in the world happened to you?" We did not have a return policy for custom-styled wigs, but we honored every request until each customer was satisfied. After that experience, we were very careful to advise women as to the color of wigs they should select. And actually, the wigs did prove to be a drawing card, many times attracting women who also bought cosmetics. Our beauty consultants took the wigs to skincare classes, but because our primary concern was skincare, they weren't brought out until the facials were completed. Taking wigs to classes presented all kinds of new problems. First, a wig styled for one person can look totally incorrect on someone else. Therefore, the consultants had to take several of those expensive wigs everywhere they went. And if a wig was not handled carefully, the set could easily be ruined. Finally, the wigs took up a lot of space in our Exchange Park storefront. We styled and stored them in the back, so that room was always cluttered with hair dryers and curlers. Because we were seeing customers in the front room, we kept it nicely decorated, but the wig paraphernalia meant that we had no place to store our cosmetics. Finally, we were forced to rent a basement storage area. Our problems had just begun because in order to get the inventory, you had to go out in the mall, walk half a block, go down a long flight of stairs, and then walk another 100 yards once you got to the basement. It amounted to a 2-block hike. Richard was handling our bookkeeping, but he also had the assignment of going down to the storage to fill orders. I always insisted that Richard dress like a businessman, even though he still looked like a teenager. Once a sale was made, he would formally take the order saying, "Yes, ma'am, I'll be right back." Then he would head off for the stairs, peeling off his coat as he ran through the mall. By the time he reached the storage area, he'd have his coat and tie off. Once the order was assembled, he'd put his coat and tie on, straighten his shoulders, and run back to the showroom and handed the customer the order. Just as dignified as you please. But there was no doubt that he was running himself to death, up and down those steps, and as our business grew, his administrative duties grew as well. He was finally saved when his older brother Ben joined our business. Ben worked out of the basement storage area, and we simply called the orders into him. In early 1965, Richard declared, "I've had it with these wigs. We've got to get rid of them." It was getting ridiculous. We estimated that it was taking 8 hours of consultant time to sell one wig. First, she had to bring the customer in to sell and fit the wig. Then she had to bring the customer back a second time to pick it up, the finished product. It was time-consuming for everyone. Taking the wigs out of our line turned out to be an excellent decision. Our consultants zeroed in on skincare products, and our sales climbed $20,000 the very next month. By now, we were truly a family company, and soon we were joined by my daughter, Marilyn. When our business was just 2 months old, I had visited Marilyn at her home in Houston and gave her a beauty case full of our products. No training manual, mind you, just a beauty case. "Do something with this," I had said. Of course, Marilyn had been using the products for years, so there was no need to talk her into anything. In addition to caring for her children, Marilyn became one of our first directors. And for 4 years, until medical problems with her back forced her to leave the business, she was one of our best representatives. I'm sure that if she had been able to continue, she would have become a top director in our organization. My first beauty consultants, all 9 of them, came with us because they were friends and because they trusted us when we said we would make it. There were other, maybe even more experienced salespeople I would have longed to recruit, but I had made a firm decision not to proselytize people working with other direct sales companies. My first consultant, Delene White, had previously worked for my husband's company. She came with me as her way of being a good friend. Today, Delene is one of our national sales directors, and her earnings have exceeded any of her wildest dreams. She was to become one of our very first Mary Kay millionaires. That's an honor bestowed when a national sales director earns more than $1 million in commissions. To date, we have had 74 Mary Kay millionaires, 27 of whom have become multimillionaires. Not bad for an operation that started out with a hope and a prayer. Some of those original consultants had intended to join us just on a temporary basis. Apparently, I was so enthusiastic they just couldn't say no. There were other people, of course, who did say no, and they just watched and waited for us to go broke. With hindsight, you might say that they made a mistake, but remember, back then, it really looked as if we didn't know what we were doing. Everything was still experimental. We just kept plugging along, doing things by the golden rule. It's important for managers to have field experience if they are to be of real value to their sales force. So in the beginning, I also gave sales presentations, but I learned that people really don't appreciate having the owner of the company make initial contact. "You own this company and you're at my house giving facials?" they would ask. Must be an awful small company. Apparently, they presumed that if the company was that small, the products couldn't be very good. I dearly loved giving skincare classes, but before long, I was forced to admit, from my own past experiences and from what the consultants were telling me, that it would be better if I didn't. But over a period of time, we were able to develop a uniform sales presentation and a sales training program. One of the things I concentrated on during the first years was the development of a consultant instruction manual. I worked very, very hard on it, and when I got the first one ready, I thought it was rather impressive. It had 5 pages, and one of them was a welcome letter. Today, the Mary Kay Consultant Guide has more than 200 pages. It has evolved as our successful directors learned and shared their knowledge. We began with the basic skincare set consisting of cleansing cream, magic mask, skin freshener, night cream, and day radiance foundation. The products were in little jars and bottles, and each consultant had a set that she would pass around for every woman to use. That was before we really knew about sanitation and how easily microorganisms from one person's skin can be harmful to someone else's. As I think about it now, I'm aghast that we didn't know any better. We always knew that 5 items in the basic set worked together to help maintain a woman's skin and keep it beautiful. But in the beginning, we would break the set and sell a woman any individual item she requested. A few months later, we sometimes got calls from women who had bought only a few items, and they would say, "It didn't work for me. What happened?" In the beginning, we even divided foundation if that's what the customers wanted. This product came in a variety of skin tones and in a yellow color base for covering the red spots and blotches. If a consultant was working with 3 different people, each of whom wanted a small amount of something, such as a yellow Day Radiance foundation, the consultant would take a knife and some wax paper, divide one Day Radiance foundation into 3 parts, and let the customers draw to see who got the box. I can't believe we did that, but we did. Breaking up the basic set in this manner was like giving you my recipe for chocolate cake but leaving out the chocolate and the sugar. It just isn't going to be my cake. For example, if you applied a mask by itself without first cleansing the face and then following with the skin freshener, it could have a drying effect. The products in the basic set have always complemented one another. We finally concluded that we would not break the basic set. we decided we'd rather face the customer's initial ire than have her fail to get the desired results. Our first inventory included the basic set and additional glamour items: rouge, lip and eye palettes, mascara, eyebrow pencil. I remember that on our first day of business, we stored our entire Mary Kay inventory on a $9.95 steel shelf unit I had purchased from Sears. Today, we have approximately 100 products in our full line, excluding shade variations, and the average consultant probably has more inventory than the entire company had that opening day. When we started Mary Kay Cosmetics, we thought our products were wonderful. Even so, we knew that we could make them better. We now invest millions of dollars in research so that we can continue to improve and refine our product in the line. Today, there are formulas for virtually every skin type. Because, as I said, personalizing the beauty process is our specialty. We want women to get the best possible results, and so we teach them how to use our products to the very best advantage. Initially, our products were made by a private manufacturer company in Dallas. I chose this firm because it was run by a man with an excellent reputation in the cosmetics field, and we wanted someone who was both ethical and reliable. I took the formulations to the president of the company, and he calmly turned the whole thing over to his son. After our tiny order, I'm sure he thought he'd never see us again. But we did come back, and a second order, and a third order, and so on and so on. A few years later, we were in a position to invite his son to join us and head our manufacturing division. When we first started the business, Richard, Ben, and I put 16 and 18-hour work days as we struggled to do anything that had to be done. Sometimes after filling and packaging orders, we would write the mimeograph, our newsletter, until 2 o'clock in the morning. But our hard work paid off. During our first 3.5 months in business, we had made a small profit of $34,000 in sales. The first calendar year brought $198,000 in wholesale sales. And at the end of the second year, we had reached an unbelievable total of $800,000. After just 1 year in business, we had expanded to such a scale that we needed new offices. We moved our headquarters to 1220 Majesty Drive. Now we had 3 real offices, one each for Richard, Ben, and me. A training room and a huge warehouse, 5,000 square feet in all. It seemed like the Grand Canyon to us. And best of all, nobody had to run out to the mall and down to the basement stairs. On September 13th, 1964, we held our first company convention, and we called it Seminar. Seminar is still a big event for us, and later I will describe how it has grown to present spectacular form. For this first one, we couldn't afford to rent a space in a hotel, so we convened in the warehouse of our Majesty Drive location. I still remember how enthusiastic we all were and how hard we tried to economize. We decorated the warehouse with crepe paper and balloons and whipped up a menu of chicken, jalapeno dressing, and Jell-O salad. We had bought little paper plates that were much too flimsy to cut on, so I cooked and boned the chicken for 200 people the week before, made the dressing, and froze everything. On the appointed day, I thawed out everything and reheated it in that old turkey roaster of mine. I also made a huge orange Jell-O salad filled with all kinds of goodies, but I failed to consider that it was September, and Texas isn't all that cool in September. That Jell-O melted all over the place, but people sat, held their droopy plates on their laps, and did the best they could. Richard hired a 3-piece band to entertain us, and Ellen Notley, a director from Tyler, Texas, baked a big cake decorated with the words "Happy First Anniversary." It had been an extremely happy anniversary at the end of our first year, The Mary Kay business family included 200 wonderful people. After dinner, I acted as the master of ceremonies, and we had our first annual awards night. It was very modest compared with what we do now, but we were all thrilled. I keep a copy of every speech I ever give, as I often revise and update them for subsequent presentations. No sense in wasting a good thought. Recently, I reviewed the speeches given at past seminars. Part of my favorite speech had appeared on several occasions, but in its original form, the copy had read, "And next year, we expect to have 3,000 people in our sales force." I remember basing that statement on Richard's market projections. Yet, as I spoke those numbers, I really couldn't imagine it would ever come true. The following year, I used the same page in my speech, only estimated that it had been scratched out and replaced with the number 11,000. Further along in my collection, I found the identical page. Make that 40,000. Today, hundreds of thousands of beauty consultants teach women the Mary Kay system of skincare, and we're still growing. Looks as if I'll have to leave this particular spot vacant the next time my speech is reprinted. Then I can just pencil in our current total. Our growth has brought many changes. For one thing, you can't feed thousands of consultants by using a turkey roaster. The old roaster has been retired from the seminar duty, but I want you to know that it still cooks a terrific Thanksgiving dinner.